You know, we have tons of conversations every single day, but how many of them really do anything? How many of them actually make a difference? Well, today we're diving into the art of persuasion because it's not just about what you're saying, it's about the incredible power of how you say it. Have you ever been there? You're in a meeting or a discussion, you lay out what you think is a perfect logical point, and you just get nothing. A blank stare. Or even worse, you just get totally brushed aside. It is so frustrating. But what if I told you there's a toolkit you can use? A way to not only make sure you're heard, but to actually change minds? Well, that's exactly what we're going to build today. Okay, so before we can even think about convincing somebody else, we got to get our own house in order. This is the absolute foundation, just stating our own case clearly and effectively. And it really all comes down to choosing the right words for the right moment. I want you to think about your words like a set of tools. I mean, you wouldn't use a giant sledgehammer to turn a tiny screw, right? It's the same idea here. In a formal work meeting, you're going to reach for a phrase like, I would argue that. It sounds professional, it sounds respectful, but with your friends, I reckon, or if you ask me, just feels so much more natural. The whole key is just matching the tool to the job. Simple as that. So, you've picked your tool, you know if you're being formal or informal, but wait, there's another layer here. The words you choose also send a signal about how strongly you actually believe what you're saying, and that can change everything. You can almost picture it like a strength scale. Way down on the low end, you've got something like, I reckon, it's casual, maybe a little bit uncertain. Then, in the middle, I would argue that. Sounds a lot more assertive, right? But when you need to bring the thunder, when you need to show you are 100% certain, you use a phrase like, I am convinced that. That leaves zero doubt in anyone's mind about where you stand. Okay, so we've got a handle on stating our own case. Now let's climb up to the next level, actually persuading someone. And listen, this isn't about some kind of magic trick or manipulation. It is a clear, repeatable strategy that's built on two things: respect and logic. And here it is, the three-step framework. Now, step one is absolutely crucial. You have to acknowledge their point of view first. Something like, I see your point, but immediately shows you're actually listening. Then, and only then, do you move to step two and bring in your evidence, the facts, the examples, the stuff that backs you up. And finally, step three ties it all together with a neat little bow, like, so as you can see. It's a perfect logical flow from respect to reason to resolution. So what is this strong evidence we're talking about for step two? Well, think of it as the bedrock, the foundation of your entire argument. It could be hard data, numbers from a study. It could be a real-world example or even a personal story that's relevant. The more concrete and real your evidence is, the more solid your argument becomes. All right, now for what I think is the most powerful, the most important technique in this whole toolkit, the art of softening. Now, this is not about being weak, not at all. It's a strategic move. It's about lowering someone's defenses. See, the second people feel attacked, their brains just shut down. They stop listening and they start preparing for a fight. Softening your language bypasses that whole defense mechanism, and it makes them genuinely open to what you have to say. Just look at these phrases. They don't sound like attacks, do they? They sound like invitations. Maybe we should think about. Turns a potential fight into a team project. And, oh, this one's great. I'm not an expert, but that little bit of humility can instantly make someone want to hear your idea because you're not pretending to have all the answers. And this one? This one might just be my favorite. I could be wrong, but this is the ultimate Jedi mind trick of persuasion. Why? Because it completely and totally disarms the other person. You're basically giving them permission to disagree, which, paradoxically, makes them way more likely to actually listen and consider your point. It's such a simple phrase, but the impact is massive. Let's see this in the real world. Here's the before. Someone says something you don't agree with, and you just fire back, you're wrong. And what happens? A wall just went up. The conversation is over. It's dead. You've triggered a fight, not a discussion. Now, look at the after. Feel the difference. Starting with, I understand where you're coming from. Boom, you've just validated their feelings. Then, but have you considered, gently opens a door to a new idea. It is night and day. The first one is a brick wall. This one is an open door. So there you have it. You've learned how to state your case with the right level of strength, how to build a rock-solid logical argument, and the secret sauce, how to use softening language to open up people's minds. You now have a full persuasion toolkit ready to go. So let's just boil it all down. These are the three big takeaways. 1. Match your language to the situation. 2. Use that three-step method to build your argument logically. And 3. Always use those softening phrases to turn a potential fight into a real conversation. So with this new toolkit in your back pocket, I'm just going to leave you with one final thought. Think about a conversation that's coming up soon, maybe at work, with your family, with your friends. What is the very first conversation that you are going to change with what you've learned here today?